I'm Josh Sneed, the interpretive ranger at Stephen C. Foster State Park, which is right in the middle of the Okefenokee Swamp. The Okefenokee is part of a national wildlife refuge, which makes it a great place for people to come out and see wild things. But the term Okefenokee, it inspires wonder. What does it mean? Where did it come from? Well, the term is a Native American term. Its origins, though, its exact meaning, they're debated. Most people today think Okefenokee translates to something like Land of the Trembling Earth. But what is Trembling Earth? The formation of Trembling Earth begins with the formation of peat. Peat is the buildup of decomposing plant material. As plants die, pieces of them settle on the bottom of the swamp and form layers. These layers are pressed together and eventually they form a peat bed. It can take as much as 50 years for just 1 inch of peat to form. The thickest peat mats in the swamp are around 15 feet deep, but the average is around 5 to 10 feet deep. Occasionally, parts of these peat beds will break loose from the bottom and float to the surface. These are called batteries or blow-ups. You may see them floating around the wet prairies or lakes of the swamp. Gators will lie on them under the sun. Birds will look for their next meal on them. Flowers, grasses, and other plants will also grow on them. Some of them are supportive enough that a human could walk on them. If a human decided to walk across one of these floating mats of peat, it would tremble under their feet. This is the Trembling Earth, and while it's not recommended to go out and walk on it anymore, there's some not-so-friendly creatures down there. We can still look at some of the plants that are growing out of this Trembling Earth and get a good idea of how it works. So right here we have a pond cypress, a young pond cypress that's growing out of a floating chunk of peat. I can show you that it's floating by kind of pushing it around a little bit. It is not rooted down to the bottom, not yet anyway. Over time, this chunk of peat could merge with another chunk of peat. It could get heavier, and that might allow this tree to actually root down and stabilize. But for now, this is an unstable chunk of peat supporting this tree. These chunks of peat go hand in hand with the ecological succession of the swamp. That is how the swamp's environment changes over time. In general, you will begin with an open lake. Water lilies and aquatic grasses eventually fill in the lake, forming a wet prairie. As the chunks of peat get thicker, shrubs take hold, fill in the prairie, and form a shrub forest. Given enough time, the peat will get thick enough that it will support a full forest of trees, mostly cypress, black gum, red maple, and bay trees. So what stops the peat from filling in the entire swamp and turning it into one big forest? Because the swamp's water comes mostly from rain, it can go through very wet and very dry periods. During the dry periods, or droughts, the peat will dry up, which makes it burn very easily. All it takes is a well-placed lightning strike to start a wildfire in the swamp. During the most extreme droughts, fire can burn deep down into the peat beds, sometimes all the way down to the sandy bottom. Some people call the most intense fires in the swamp prairie-making fires. That's because they can make new prairies, or sometimes even lakes, where there once was very thick deposits of peat. This is how the swamp starts the process over. The swamp is a dynamic place. Wherever you look, you can see how this place evolves and keeps itself in check over time. You can see what keeps this place so special. This is the Okefenokee, Land of the Trembling Earth.